Yeah, I didn't touch my phone. I did nothing. It disappeared.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Maybe I touched something.
Do you wanna see that movie? Do you wanna see that movie? Do you wanna see that movie?
Welcome to Hey, did you ever see that movie? I'm your host, Des, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Lynn,
Wake up, sleepyheads.
and back by popular demand, the podcaster with a degree in terror, Tony.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. Today, we will be discussing the 1986 rock horror movie Trick or Treat, written by Rhett Topham, Michael Murphy, and Joel Soyson, starring Marc Price and Gene Simmons, among others. As always, this podcast will be filled with spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it, come back, and listen to the podcast. But before we get into it, let's run the trailer.
Wake up, sleepyhead.
It's party time!
Rock and roll will never die. At least not this Halloween.
You've heard of raising spirits from the dead by incantations, right?
Yes.
I did that by playing a record backwards.
You're kidding.
Sammy Kerr. He's a rock and roll nightmare.
I am a big fan of yours. I've got all your records. Shut up!
You're the big. The big is you.
This message is meant for me.
How can you listen to this stuff?
Shut it off! Shut it off!
What have you done to your stereo?
I wanted a new one.
Sammy Kerr. His fans won't let him die. He won't let them live.
You should be loyal to your hero. Make it turn on you.
Trick or treat.
Looks like we better check out the party punch.
All right, Dylan, do you want to give us a synopsis on this gem?
Sure. Sure. A bullied teenage boy is devastated after the death of his heavy metal idol, Sammy Kerr. But as Halloween night approaches, he discovers that he may be the only one who can stop Sammy from making a satanic comeback from beyond the grave.
That's it?
That's it.
All right. So let's do some opening thoughts and I'll get started. So this movie holds a place in my heart because in high school, I was Skippy. I mean, not a dork like Skippy. I was like a much cooler version of Skippy. I had like the cool, long Nikki Sixx black hair, and I'm quite sure I was the only kid in my high school covered in tattoos. And I did have problems with a group of kids. They weren't preppies or jocks. They were actually what I call Zepp heads. They were Led Zeppelin kids. And they were burnouts. They wore the leather jackets. And, things got physical. And, I can recall one time in shop class when one of the kids actually grabbed me from behind and we got into it. And I ended up poking him in the arm a few times with a nail and getting suspended from school before, shortly after that, quitting high school altogether and moving out to California to begin my failed career as a rock star. Also, this movie,
Tale as old as time.
Yeah, tale as old as time. And I'm sure Tony has a similar story. Blackie Lawless was also thought of maybe for the lead of this as Sammy Kerr. And I think he would have been an awesome Sammy Kerr. He eventually turned down the role because he just was not going to lip sync over Fastway. He wanted them to use Wasp music. They didn't want to use Wasp music, so he passed on the role of Sammy Kerr. And the movie also had two other titles, which are used overseas. One title is Ragman, and the other is Death at 33 RPMs.
Oh,
So that's my opening thoughts. And Tony, how about you? Let's hear about your high school experience.
oh, I can't. How do I top fail LA? You know, all that. That was just like that was a journey, man.
It was a journey.
I was gonna actually say the same thing, except I was Skippy. I was the geek. I was in Saugus they called them skeds. Saugus kids on drugs, even though like no one could afford drugs back in the day. So it's like we were the metalheads, and we got picked on because you listen to music, the whole thing. It's just I related so much to this movie when it came out. It was like, this is my movie, this is awesome. And watching it now, I'm cringing, going, that was me, that was awful, this is terrible. To touch on your thoughts, it's like Blackie Lawless. I'm glad he turned it down. I like Wasp music. I hate Blackie Lawless as a metal fan because just we can touch on that later. But it's funny because I actually do have my Blu-ray copy. I actually had to get imported from Denmark, and it's actually Ragman on the Blu-ray case.
Right.
So that was funny. I've never heard of the Death at 33 RPMs. I think that's a great title.
I think it's a great name for a band.
Seriously. But yeah, I mean that's my intro. I literally just got the album of the release. The I think it's the 30th anniversary release vinyl for this. So I'm cranking it all week, getting ready for this podcast. I'm excited to discuss this cinematic masterpiece.
I actually listened to the Fastway album for Trick or Treat quite a few times over the last week, and it's a great album. Come on.
It really is.
The guitar playing's awesome, and yeah, I love it. Lynn, how about you?
I think this movie would not have been half of what it was if you had put Wasp music in it, because Wasp music is really like aggressive, whereas this has like the Fastway music has a little touch of that pop metal thing without being totally pop metal, but not being like so hard that it's like almost unlistenable. And I'm not trying to say that Wasp is unlistenable, but it's just there's a different tone to it,
Dude, the guitar riff for Stand Up is Trick or Treat.
Totally.
It's awesome. And I had one more question for Tony. Did you get my email today with the picture of the band Diamond Rex?
I did. I can see why you would have thought that.
Yeah, I got that record when I was like maybe 16, thinking, I'm like, oh my God, it's fucking Sammy Kerr. And then I put it on and went, oh my God, this sucks.
This is not Sammy Kerr.
This is not Sammy Kerr. So, all right. And Dylan, do you have any high school stories you want to share before we get into it?
So my high school experience was different from the two of yours because I was a girl. So it made things a little different. I think guys took it a lot harder, like girls kind of like just got along, even if you were a metalhead, if you were, a prep, it didn't really matter. Like you just kind of got along because you were a chick,
Right.
And so there was more leeway if you were a girl and into, metal music, or, I was into hair metal. So it probably was less aggressive than if I was like wearing Metallica metal up your ass t-shirts,
Right.
So, and of course, really at the time I was going to school, I don't know I mean, I know you were ahead of me, and I don't remember where Tony falls in this, but like I went to school right around, I don't want to out anyone's age, but I went to
covered wagons were going across the plains.
You were dying of dysentery.
I had a belt around my books as I
But like I was going to school right around the time Guns N' Roses got popular, and of course when Guns N' Roses got popular, everybody loved metal music, quote unquote. Like it became cool to like metal music, as opposed to being you were on the outs if you liked metal music,
That's when it made me angry. It's like, yeah, and we'll get into that later on, because there's the scenes in this movie that just fall into that. It's just like all the shit these people made fun of us for and tormented us for all of a sudden became the fashionable thing in like the late 80s, early 90s.
Yep.
And motherfucker, we were listening to this shit way before. And now it's called, what are they calling it? Gatekeeping now?
Yeah.
The Metallica after Stranger Things. It's like,
yeah,
I appreciate they're getting more money. I appreciate they're like getting more popular, but it's like old guard, man. Old guard.
It's funny. One of the first concerts, like big concerts I ever went to, was actually Wasp, Accept, and Zodiac Mind Warp at the Orpheum. So
wow. That's quite the lineup.
Yeah. It was awesome. Are you kidding me? So yeah, I'm old school, just like Tony is. I was there when it happened. All right, so let's get into it. We get an opening shot of, I mean, come on, man. This poster of Sammy Kerr looking down is like everything I love about metal in the 80s. This poster looks fucking awesome. And it's set to the song Stand Up by Fastway, which is my favorite Fastway song. And it's followed by a montage of 80s heavy metal posters on Skippy's wall.
You're just going to keep
We're
putting
just
on
gonna keep
Skippy,
calling
huh?
it Skippy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's not Skippy, it's Eddie, but it's Skippy. He'll always be Skippy to me. It's a montage by Eddie of 80s heavy metal posters on Eddie's wall and stereo equipment and all sorts of cool metal stuff from the day. And then we're going to meet Eddie Weinbauer, Ragman, played by Marc Price. Lovely little Skippy, and we love him. And he's writing a fan letter to his idol, Sammy Kerr. We also get some scenes of Eddie at high school being picked on before ultimately being tossed out of the boys' locker room, totally nude in front of the girls' volleyball team, and being photographed with, yes, a Polaroid camera by one of the girls. At the end of this montage, we learned that Sammy Kerr also went to Eddie's high school from Eddie's fan letter. Let's talk about it. Delin?
Well, I hate to say that it was like, what's the word isn't right. Aggressive is not the right word. But, those things did happen to kids. Like, I remember kids in my school getting picked on mercilessly. And, I look back and I feel bad for poor Eddie. Like that's a tough go. Like, you're the quote unquote strangest kid in school and you're an easy target,
Yeah. Tony?
Yeah, no, I lived it, and the funny thing is, like being a dad now, you could start to see it in the kids. You can almost like as they're growing up, like that kid's going to be the kid who's going to pick on everybody for everything different. So yeah, the thing about Eddie is that, again, I hate to be this cringeworthy, but it's like I'm when I remember seeing this when I was like 16, 17, I was like, fuck yeah, that's what fuck the man. It's like they'll show everybody that's what metal does, and watch it now, it's like, oh.
Yeah. So times have changed a lot. And, for the younger generation listening to this, when I went to junior high, specifically junior high and high school, it was rough, man. Like I'm telling you, kids got their asses kicked. There were fights after school. There were fights in the hall. People were mercilessly bullied physically and emotionally. And that is just real talk. It was different than it is today. It wasn't getting a little email like, ooh, it happened in person in your face. There was no cyberbullying. I suppose a Polaroid taken and passed around high school was the 80s version of cyberbullying. Which,
if you think about it, it would be like showing somebody's nudes these days.
And also let's talk about this letter that he is writing to Sammy. This is almost like Stan, with Eminem. This is stalker stuff.
That's a good comparison there.
Yeah.
This is creepy. Like if I'm Sammy Kerr, I'm like, ooh, this kid's scary.
I mean, when we think about it, back in the day, it's like all the songs we listened to in the 80s were all like, stand up and shout and rock it. It's like we're not gonna take it. I mean, all of that anti-establishment. The songs were written for us. It's like we knew we looked different. We knew we felt different than everybody else. All the songs were for that. And that's what he was writing, and that's what I could appreciate back in the day. Is like, you went to this high school and you rose above it, and now look at you now above everybody else, and everybody wants to be you and wants a piece of you, but you're fuck them. It's like you made it. You give me hope. Which is what we all had. It's like you went out to LA to be a musician. I ended up growing up to be a musician. I remember the exact moment when I wanted to pick up the bass is the second I saw during the breakdown in Motley Crue's Looks to Kill video when Nikki Sixx like bangs the bass and stands up behind the fire. I'm like, I want to be him.
Dude, best shot ever in a rock video. He looks so cool.
Like, I mean, like, I don't play guitar good enough. I'm not handling drums. I want to play bass.
Oh shit. I just wanted to look like Nikki Sixx and mission accomplished.
You look like Tommy Lee. You don't look like Nikki Sixx.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, and it was funny because, like with you, Tony, when I went to high school, metal wasn't quite a thing yet. Like we were kind of, like you said, outcasts. And then shortly after I, probably turned like 18, it got really mainstream. Like next thing you knew, you had all these clubs, Narcissus Metal Night, the Channel, the Rock Pile. I mean, metal was an epidemic come 88, 89. Everyone was doing it. I'm sure high school looked a lot different then.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was the thing is like, that's when I realized, I mean, I'll throw it out there. I graduated in 88 from high school. So, I mean, I came out to music in 82, 83 as I got my Ramones, I got my AC/DC that brought me into Van Halen, which brought me into, who's this Metallica, Ride the Lightning? What's that? Oh my God, it opened up the world. And then come 83, you have 84, Shout at the Devil, Jump, everything became, that was the explosion. 84, Pyromania, Metal Health, Twisted Sister. That 84 to 86, amazing flood of not dance, not popular music.
Oh, it's all so good. Evil Eye, Motorhead. I mean, don't get me going.
Yeah. but
all right.
You're right. High school totally changed in those years where it became, eventually by 88, 89, it was okay to like it.
Yeah, because I graduated in 92, and that was right around the time Nirvana and all that started happening. So like it was already quote unquote cool to like that music by the time I got to high school. So, I definitely was not picked on like you guys were.
I actually met Lynn at a heavy metal night at Derringer's in Brockton. I was wearing a police hat, drunk as could be, lined up against a pole, probably just about to pass out when she came over and rescued me, and the rest is history, as we know. Derringers, oh my God!
It's now a parking lot.
It is a parking lot. So next we see Eddie doing laundry. We see a news story featuring Sammy Kerr. We learn the PTA head had blocked his Halloween show at the high school. And we also learn Sammy has died in a hotel fire. Eddie runs to his room and starts tearing down his posters to fast ways, tearing down the walls, but stops at the Sammy Kerr poster. Delyn, I know you want to talk about this newscast.
Well, yeah. So, of course, they show Kerr at a Senate hearing for, censorship and heavy metal music and Satan and whatever. And, of course, it's a direct relay to Dee Snider at the PMRC and music censorship hearings. And I checked the timeline, and Dee Snider was in 1985 and this movie came out in 86. So it was like a direct correlation. Like they basically just copied what happened with Dee Snider. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, Tony.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. The only thing that did, I can't say bother me, is like I knew because I went in college in 92, I actually did my thesis, if you want to call it that, in undergrad on music censorship in America. And so I referenced Dee Snider and Frank Zappa's testimonies so much I could almost recite them word for word at this point. And just seeing Sammy Kerr try to do it, but still try to keep the I'm bad, was kind of just like, oh, dude, you could have. I understand what they were going for, but that scene bugged me. And the scene about the newscast was like, it was all this Sammy Kerr. Oh yeah, by the way, he died. It was, it was thrown off on the end of the newscast, which like, oh, that just seems awkward.
Totally. It's you know what it was? It was just exposition. And, I know why they did it, but it was very unrealistic. A news story would never look like that. And it was funny because I remembered the Dee Snider testimony being much edgier than it was. And going back and watching it, he was very polite and well-spoken. And I was like, wow, he's kind of a dork. And I kind of read this scene a little differently. I was like, yeah, man, we will bring you down. It was cheesy, but I liked it. I was like, fuck yeah, that's how Dee should have done it.
Now, personally, I liked the way Dee did it because they were expecting him to come in and be ridiculous. And he came in super intelligent and made everybody that was in his camp look that much better. So I appreciated that. And I know your point, and especially plays well for the movie. But when it comes to real life and Dee Snider, I much more appreciated the more intelligent way he came at it.
Yeah. All right. So next scene, we're going to meet Nuke, a local rock and roll shock DJ played by the great Gene Simmons. Eddie has gone to the radio station to confide in Nuke, and we get some exposition from Nuke here. Basically letting us know that he knew Sammy, and Sammy was an angry, screwed up guy going all the way back to high school. Nuke gives Eddie that classic, that classic Gene Simmons look where he rolls his eyes up. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. And gives him a special acetone record of Sammy's last recordings. That's to be played at midnight on Halloween per Sammy's request. Since Nuke made a copy, he gives Eddie the record. Tony?
Totally geeked out that because I'm thinking, oh my God, to get a one-of-a-kind recording of your favorite artist. Awesome. On the side note, just now from the movie fan, this possibly will be my favorite Gene Simmons role. I know he's done some other acting. He did the Tom Selleck movie. He did a few others. I loved him. Like watching him last night, it's like he had these subtle looks that just were really, really good. Yeah. And his delivery was like he switched the shock jock on and then turned it off and said, "Hey, Ragman, come on in." And he was very, I hate to say warm. It's weird seeing Gene Simmons warm because even his real life persona, he never shuts off. He's always an asshole. And it's like to see him just like caring about this kid. And it's like, look, he wasn't that good of a guy. I actually wanted more of that monologue. I wanted more to like, what was he like in high school?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's funny because I almost felt like Gene Simmons was talking about himself in the late 70s.
Totally.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I was just saying to Delin not an hour ago, Gene Simmons is a very good actor for a musician turned actor. He's just got that smooth, warm edge, like you said. And Delin, what did you think of the scene?
So I actually was thinking I'm not looking to jump ahead, but I wish that he had shown up again at the end.
Totally.
And I understand why not. And it probably also had to do with his price tag.
Yep.
But I would have liked to have seen him at the end, even if it was like a quick one and done, like if something happened to him, like if Sammy got him or whatever. But, especially where like he knew Sammy, like it might have been cool to have like a moment,
Totally.
And so I was a little disappointed that didn't happen. I was kind of waiting for it to happen and it didn't, of course. But yeah, I mean, I think the movie could have done with a little bit more Nuke. I thought he was good.
Yeah, I totally agree. More Gene Simmons would have been good. And I also think more Sammy Kerr would have been good.
Yeah.
The actor that played Sammy Kerr, they had that look dialed in, and I loved every moment of screen time he had, except for one part we're going to get to later.
Yeah, I got some thoughts.
Where I think a guy like maybe Blackie Lawless might have pulled that off better, but I don't think I would have taken the trade off for the rest of the movie. But let's keep going. So back in high school, we meet Roger Muckus, Eddie's best friend, played by Glenn Morgan, who actually became a really good director and never acted again, but did a lot of things like X-Files and stuff like that.
Yeah, he did some of the Final Destination movies too.
Yes, yeah, he did, absolutely. And he's asking Eddie at his locker if he's okay after learning of Sammy's death. Eddie assures him he is. And we're also going to meet Leslie here, a very popular pretty girl in the school that Eddie has a crush on. She gives him back the picture of him that was taken naked in the gym and the tape that was stolen and invites him to a pool party later that night. And I was confused by this character because she's really pretty. She's really popular. There's absolutely no reason she should like Eddie at all. But she's kind of pursuing him through this movie. And I genuinely think that she likes him, but she keeps getting him in trouble.
Like, really, what was she thinking was going to happen? You're going to bring him, you just watched everybody pick fun of him. You've watched them target him, and now you're going to bring him to a party full of these people?
Well, Dylan, let me ask you this. Had she been there on time and not been late, do you think that maybe they would have started to accept him because he was there with her?
Yeah, I think that's might have been a bridge too far. I think, they might have left him alone, but I don't think they would have accepted him.
I agree. Tony?
I completely agree with that in the sense that it's funny because I watched the 80s bullies are the best. Yeah, between James Spader and Billy Zabka and this kid, the blonde dicks are just ruling the decade.
Hell
so
yeah.
He walks in and they literally turn on, what the fuck are you doing here? No, not even like in a joking way. Like they literally like hate this kid is here. And it's like there was no buildup, not even like it was like and then not for nothing. And I hate to say it was realistic, but this is the shit that happened. Like they basically tried to kill him.
Yeah.
They put weight in his backpack and dumped him in the pool.
Well, let's get to the scene real quick, and Tony, I'll give you first shot at it. So we get a shot of the Ragmobile, this big shit box that he had that I think every kid had at about that age. Only I didn't have a vanity plate that said Dez, but he does have a vanity plate that says Ragman. He races off to the pool party, and he shows up at the pool party where we presumably see a bunch of students that have broken into the school pool, I'm guessing, and are having a party. A totally out of place Eddie is spotted by the bully, Preppy Tim. He was played by Doug Savant.
Yes.
And, he basically says, like you said, what the fuck are you doing here? And tells him to get the fuck out of there before they throw a 25-pound weight in his backpack and throw him in the swimming pool. Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just that's like manslaughter. It's like, what are you doing? It's like
Not even that's murder.
I this is because I'm this movie geek. Whenever there's a scene in a movie where someone has to dive in the ground, dive in the water, and like has to swim far away, I'll hold my breath just to see if I would make it.
Yep.
Like on the audience, he was down there for close to like 45 seconds. No one's jumping in until she comes there, swims down, takes his backpack off, and rescues him. The love interest. It's just like, come on, that's extreme. But at the same time, I'm remembering back, it's like, dude, I almost got hit by these losers on their car, and I was on my bike. It's like, It was dangerous back then. Like bullies were a lot more vicious.
This stuff happens. Kids take it too far. Kids suck.
Yeah, they can. And just really quickly, Doug Savant, who played Tim, goes on to recurring roles on Melrose Place and Desperate Housewives later. Because I kept saying, I know this guy. Where do I know him from? And it was from Melrose Place.
Melrose Place is there. I'm sitting there going, I know him. I thought he was like, I knew. I hate to say Desperate Housewives, but yeah.
Now, in the defense of the preppies, they do say, hey, Metalhead, you're in the shallow end. So he could have stood up.
But he wasn't there, was he?
Yeah, he was in the shallow end because, when she finally pulls him up, they're both basically just standing up talking.
So look at that. I think I'll look at it, but I don't think he was. But either way,
it still sucks, though. I mean, he was pinned to the bottom on his back. So whether he was in 2 feet of water or 10 feet of water, he was probably going to drown.
Exactly.
Yeah, and, so.
Oh, the one thing I did want to mention earlier in the newscast, because I want to gloss over it, we have a large Marge sighting. I don't want that to go ignored because it's a classic character. As soon as she pops the screen, I'm like, large Marge is here.
Dude, it was totally large Marge. I was laughing about that too.
I literally was like, okay, I know this woman, and I had to go to IMDb, and I was like, oh, of course, it's large Marge.
Yeah. All right, so back in his room, he puts on the Sammy Kerr record and starts having visions of the hotel fire before waking to the record skipping backwards messages. Let the big fish hook themselves. You're the bait is you. This is coming off the album Songs in the Key of Death. And I love this scene. This is some yummy Sammy Kerr to me, sitting there all possessed and burning with the 2 weird guys doing the weird dance behind him in the fire. I freaking loved it. Tony, what do you think?
Yeah. It served its purpose for the movie. We'll just say that.
It was cool imagery for this movie, for this, as Delin would say, after school special.
It was. I think that's what it is like they had Fred from accounting, like, hey, dude, give me something satanic. Our people are on fire and there's a snake and that's it. How does that work? Good. Tim, write that scene, Tim. That's how most of this felt.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was saying to Des earlier that this movie definitely has kind of like an after-school special feel to me in a lot of parts, and sometimes it doesn't. Like sometimes it's moving and it feels good, but then like you'll get scenes that have like no background music and it's very dry, and it's like I feel like I'm watching an after-school special from back in the day, and I'm like, this is a little weird. Like it feels a little weird in places.
Oh yeah, this movie wasn't quite sure what it wanted to be. Was it a Breakfast Club? Was it? I mean, I'm not sure. So in the next scene, back at high school, Eddie is setting some traps before throwing food on Tim and then being chased by the preppy gang led by Tim through the halls of the school, where the bullies fall for every single trap that Eddie set. And this is set to the song Get Tough. The scene ends with Tim spraying down the teachers, eating their lunch in the teacher's lounge, and Eddie getting away. So there were some cool scenes in this I thought were funny, like when they're walking through the library.
Yeah.
Yeah, the run walk.
The run walk.
We've all done the run walk in front of a teacher.
And it's like, you got to show respect to the librarian. But the music teacher, fuck him. They fucking plow through the band class and take out everybody. But at the library, you don't fuck with the librarian.
Yeah, the fat tuba kid always goes down, man.
Oh, shit. That's funny. All right, next, a very excited Eddie back in his room plays the backward message for Roger, but Roger's not convinced and leaves. And I love some of the lines here by Roger. Once you go down to the Hunan Village, you get a bag of fortune cookies and plan out the rest of your week. Yeah. Eddie again plays the record backwards to reveal the record is actually talking to him. Suddenly reveals that there's a plan to nail them all. Revenge, Metal Machine, 6-6, crushed. And I noticed in this scene, just for a little character building for Eddie, you'll notice there's fist holes punched in the door that have been patched and sanded over. So Eddie's an angry kid, he's having problems and he is punching holes in his door.
That's the other thing is they never touch on it, but it's understood. We only ever meet his mom. We don't know what happened to his dad. So obviously he's his single parent house. So he's got that, which goes along with the metal kid. And there's the only thing we need is an alcoholic uncle to walk in and we hit every checkpoint of the fucked up metal kid,
Yeah. So Tony, let's go through it. Divorced mom and dad?
Me? No.
Yeah. Oh no. Well, I had the divorced mom and dad. Actually, they never married mom and dad. The drunk uncle. So it was all there. I lived in the attic of our house once when we actually had a house. So yes, I checked all those boxes.
That's so rock. I didn't mean this. We don't have to go to therapy after this.
I think this review is going to be therapy. I think I've let too much out already.
Des, it's your fault. It's not your fault, man.
Oh my god, that's what they keep telling me. And in these messages from Sammy to Eddie, like in the first scene, I'm not hearing all these specifics, like put the mop bucket in the hall, set the chair up in the hall. There's a lot of improv there, so it's all working out pretty well for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was pretty clever. I mean, he set up a trap and they all ran right into it. So
yeah, very reminiscent of the Karate Kid when Daniel puts the hose over Johnny's head at the dance.
Very much so.
Yeah. All right. So in the next scene, Eddie is in the shop at school in room 66. Listening to songs in the key of death through his headphones and eating his lunch, a Twinkie and a sandwich, which he wants no part of. When Tim and his buddy confront Eddie and start beating his ass until Tim's tie gets caught in a metal machine, his head is smashed down and Spike moves in on his eyeball while his buddy is held back by sparks. These events are brought on by Sammy Kerr, and at the very last second, Eddie stops the machine from killing Tim, and Tim yells to Eddie, "It's not over yet." And Eddie replies, "No, it's not." I don't know. Do you let the machine drill a hole through Tim's head? What do you think, Tony?
Well, this just sounds incriminating at this point. So I'm gonna say no. On the off chance, is this ever used in a future testimony? No.
Oh God!
Okay, save people.
That's so funny.
I think the worst thing about the scene with the thin, skinny ties, personally.
No, everybody had those bolo ties. Come on.
All I needed was the keyboard on it, and we would have been all set. I mean, I actually really dig this scene because it shows the fact that Sammy Kerr is now becoming an entity. The machines turned on by themselves. These sparks are, it's the hellfire keeping the other jock away while the other one's basically going to be killed. And it was up to him to be the voice of reason, which shows he still has good in him. I know I'm getting deep for a movie that doesn't deserve it, but that's how I read the scene through. It was all right, he's still got a shred of humanity left. He hasn't crossed over to the full Sammy Kerr, which is why Sammy continues to get more and more aggressive as the movie goes.
It's funny. When I was 16, or what was this, 1986? So yeah, when I was 16 watching this movie, I was fucking drill that douchebag skull. Let it go. Now, watching it now, I'm like, you got to pull the switch down. But I think the 16-year-old Dez literally watches that because I don't know what Tim was about to do to Eddie with that gigantic wrench. I think he was about to cave his fucking head in.
Oh, the way he was throwing the wrenches at him. I mean, Jesus, yeah.
Yeah,
And the funny thing is, I actually noticed the second wrench that he throws, if you look, it hits the wall next to Eddie and it leaves a big gouge in the cement. So, I mean, I think he was throwing real wrenches at the kid, and it's like,
they can't afford props in this movie.
No, I think it was just a wrench, but it's like, it came really close to hitting him and it was very loud and it took a dent out of the cement. I was like, dang.
Yeah,
that's a little scary.
And then he picks up the giant wrench and he's not going to throw it. He's starting to walk towards Eddie with it. He's going to beat him up with the wrench.
Yeah.
So if I'm Eddie, I've had enough of Tim and, see you later, buddy. You're done. So Eddie races home in the ragmobile to a tape of Sammy playing backwards. Back in Eddie's room, his mom is snooping around before being terrified by Eddie's stereo blasting music. She turns around to find Eddie standing in the doorway looking demented.
See, I actually love this scene. I think he looked demented. He was like, "What are you doing, Mom?" And he totally played it cool while she's like, literally, she can't figure out how to turn a stereo off, even though there's two big, large 4-inch square power buttons on every
Thank you. I'm watching her bang them with her palms. Yeah. Bang, bang, bang. It's like, girl, there's a button right there. Just hit the button. It says on, off.
What's funny, though, Tony, is it's funny because you're right. At first, he comes in and he's like, "Hey, Mom," and he's got this look. But then he gives her a more menacing look. So they hold the shot on his face for a few minutes, and they kind of make him look a little bit demented at the end of the scene. So I read it both ways. So next scene, Eddie sets up a little Sammy shrine with a picture of Sammy, 2 black candles, and makes a tape copy of Sammy's album. I like this scene. What do you guys think?
I got to be honest with you. I think this is one of the few scenes that I felt like there was a cinematography touch when you get the black screen and he's lighting the 2 candles and all of a sudden you see the picture of Sammy illuminating behind the 2 candles. For a second, I was like, that's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, I needed these scenes like this one, the one I referred to earlier when he's having the vision of Sammy in the hotel room. Because, this fucking horror movie. And it kind of plays like an after-school special in parts, like DeLynn said. And, it plays like a teen movie in parts, like I was saying, Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink, whatever. I mean,
there's not a lot of blood.
Yeah, you take Sammy Kerr and the metal edge out of this, and this is literally Pretty in Pink, So
God, I don't know if I'd go that far.
Well,
but
what's the one? No, what's the one with the redheaded kid there, and the girl is playing drums with the blonde hair?
Wonderful.
Oh, so okay, so yeah, you take out Sammy Kerr, and this is Some Kind of Wonderful.
Leah Thompson is way hotter than this chick in this movie. Leah Thompson, you take that back, sir.
Okay, I take it back. I take it back.
The goddess Leah Thompson.
You're 100% right on that. And I must say, I'm not an aficionado on Some Kind of Wonderful, but it just that's what it reminded me of.
Wearing my future.
Dude, I'm so proud of us up to this point because after watching this, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a slog getting through this. All right, so back at school, we hear Nuke talking on the school PA. Now, I don't know what this is. Like, are they playing this radio station in the morning over the school PA? I'm not sure what's going on. But he's talking about Sammy's big show being canceled. And at midnight, he's going to do a tribute to Sammy. We also see Tim in his locker finding a tape from Eddie as a peace offering. Strange. And next we see a rejuvenated and extra heavy metal Eddie with his leather glove and his belt wrapped around his leg. And Eddie tells Roger and Leslie he is no longer worried about Tim. And basically things are going to change. He's cocky and giving him the double snaps and the big looks.
Yeah, this is an Electric Boogaloo look for sure.
Hell yeah, this is Breaking 2.
You invoked the Boogaloo.
I did. I had to because he's like, it's like parachute pants or something he's wearing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, as
No,
soon
he
as you
wears-
put the headband around, as soon as you put the kerchief around the head, you're done.
Yes.
Just don't.
Yeah, he's wearing those same black jeans with the rips in them throughout the entire movie.
I did like the fact that touch back on the last scene. The fact he puts in like a regular Memorex and he records the album onto it, and then it comes out and it's totally black. Like the cassette literally turned black, which I'm like, I never had those when I was a kid. I love
no.
Those were a special kind. You couldn't get them after like a certain date.
There are people listening to this right now going, "What the fuck is a tape? The fuck is that? What are you talking about?" Like literally no idea. It's funny because I do have my DAW music studio set up, but I also have an old Tascam 16 track that uses a cassette tape. And I actually went into a Radio Shack and said, "Do you guys have any cassette tapes?" And the kid working there said, "What's that?" And this is a God's honest true story. He said, "What's that?" And there was an older guy working there and he said, "I'll take care of it." And he came over and said, "Let me go look in the back." And he came out with like a little case of cassette tapes and he sold them to me for like nothing.
See, you say that, but there's going to be people listening to this going, "What's a Radio Shack?"
I know Radio Shack doesn't exist anymore either.
To go one step further, what's a Radio Shack? No doubt.
Oh my God. And can we also talk about the fact that Roger was looking up the cheerleader's skirt? So
oh my God. It's like he must have just inserted his head into her ass. It was like,
oh man,
no, everybody's walking by like, oh yeah, there he is looking it up. Yeah.
He was. I mean, he was not playing it cool at all. Like it was so obvious.
Oh no, he was eating popcorn and watching a movie. All right, so next scene we get Tim and his girlfriend. They're parked in Tim's car, making out, and Tim's got to get out to take a leak. Gina puts on a pair of, and here we go again, Walkman headphones with Eddie's Sammy Kerr tape in it. It summons a demon, which looks very much like the Ghostbusters dog from The Gatekeeper.
It does.
So it summons this demon and fries her brain and melts her ears after being seduced by green smoke. Very sexy scene. I enjoyed it. Tim finds her unconscious with Eddie's tape playing in her melted ears. What'd you guys think of the scene?
I mean, it was kind of the obligatory titty shot for the movie,
Yeah. So we need at least one topless scene, and the lead character was the virginal, so you gotta go the bitch.
This is actually our second topless scene. There were girls swimming topless at the pool party.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you would notice.
Yes, I would, because I am also a sex addict, among other things.
I actually dug this. It was the depart, and again, because I'm sitting there going, we haven't heard this music yet. That's because 16-year-old me was like, I want the soundtrack. So it's like, oh, it was like a cool groove music to it, and then then the clothes start coming off, and she looks up, and there's the big demon in the car, and then the ear melting. So I actually dug the scene.
I did too, and like you said, the music is not metal; it's like a tribal beat, kind of.
Yeah, I dug it.
Yeah. Going back to the music, there's a lot of scenes in here where it's weird. It's like he's like when he's jamming, going home, and it's like fast way played like at half speed backwards. It's not enjoyable.
I mean, that's the thing that people who are listening to this might not remember this, is that I hate to even have to say that, but it's like in the 80s during the Satanic Panic, there were a lot of bands that were accused of things happening by inserting backwards messages to influence young kids. Mm-hmm. And that was a thing. This isn't like it sounds stupid when we're saying it now, but it's like, this was a real thing back in the 80s. You know, to the point where Judas Priest went to trial because of hidden subliminal messages, because two kids got drunk, drugged themselves out, and shot their faces off. Yeah. One died, and one unfortunately came out very, very injured, and they actually had to go to court because of their music and had to defend that there was no subliminal messages, there was no backwards messages. This kid was just a messed up kid. Like that, that's a real trial, and this was a real thing. So I mean, watching it in the movie, it's almost like a joke thing to like nowadays, but back in the day, it's like, no, I get back with masking. Everybody did that.
Well, it's Satanic Panic was so real. Like we forget because, I mean, we lived through it, so we know, But, it was so real. Like everything was a problem. Like Dungeons and Dragons was a problem. This was a problem. That was a problem. Like, and we kind of forget how prevalent it was, now, because these days, you turn on Netflix and it's Stranger Things and it's like Dungeons and Dragons is on that and it's not a problem at all. I mean, granted, there's still pocket Christian groups that have a problem with it, but for the most part, it's not like Tipper Gore standing up there being like Dungeons and Dragons is promoting Satan, like every day.
What's funny though is, we think now, how everything's cancel culture. Like back in the day, it wasn't like that. It's always been like that. It's cancel culture there, cancel culture now. But it's funny. This reminds me of, there was a interview that Ozzy did, and there were people saying that he had put, backwards messages on his album saying, shoot, 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 get the gun.
Yeah.
And
no, wasn't that was that the one that was the Judas Priest stuff?
No, this was Ozzy. And
okay,
Suicide
so
Solution too.
Yeah, and Ozzy says,
okay, right.
And Ozzy says, yeah, we had an effect on that sounded like shoot, 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 but fuck, I never said get the gun. So I thought that was pretty fucking funny. Oh, God. And speaking of Ozzy, so next we see Reverend Ozzy denouncing rock music on a TV show. Then back at Eddie's house, Tim shows up to kick Eddie's ass. But when Eddie shows creepy powers by controlling the two jack-o'-lanterns on the porch with his hands, he puts his hands out and flames come up. And I love this scene too. I love the little supernatural in this. Tim basically says, it's over, man. Just stay away from me. You're a total freak, And I think at this point he realizes that he's about to be caught up in like a school shooting. So, not to be controversial, but this is how these things happen. This kid's been pushed to the absolute limit, and he now has the powers of a demon on his side. So Tim is done. He's like, I'm out.
I've got two things to say. One, Tim's like, just stay the fuck away from me. But dude, you just drove to his house and stood on his lawn screaming his name. So make up your mind.
No, he was going
to. No, he wasn't. He wasn't going there to kick his ass.
He was going there to kick his ass. Oh, Tony, tiebreaker. Was he going to kick his ass?
He was going to kick his ass. Then the jack-o'-lantern power happened, and then everything went.
Thank you.
No, wait a second. Okay, so second thing, jack-o'-lantern power. Like Sammy Kerr is all electric, and all of a sudden he's got control of flames.
Well, he died in a fire. He died in a fire.
Okay.
Fire.
Yeah.
Okay.
There have been no rules set up in this universe, so anything goes, anything plays.
All right.
Okay.
Please remind me of that point when we get to talk about later in the house chase with electricity and the lack of logic.
Okay. So back in Eddie's room, he asks the record, what happened to Gina? Sammy says, cheap thrills. Eddie realizes things are getting serious and suggests that they end a union of revenge. Sammy says, no false metal, and reveals Leslie is the next target. Eddie's mom knocks on the door. Sammy says, let her in and we'll nail her too. He even says, come on in Eddie's voice. After trying to unplug the radio and being electrocuted and shot across the floor, Eddie finally meets Sammy Kerr in person, played by the late Tony Fields. There is a TV playing the Ozzy thing, and Sammy swipes his hand across the screen, presumably killing Ozzy, before telling Eddie, you should be loyal to your heroes, and disappearing as a bolt of lightning into a speaker. So yeah, this is where we finally meet Sammy Kerr for the first time. And, it's fucking awesome, man. It shouldn't have taken this long.
Solid gold dancer.
No, I mean, he is. He was actually in the Thriller video. He was in the Beat It video. Like, he was a trained dancer.
Classical dancer, yeah. So it doesn't surprise me when he gets on stage and starts slapping his butt and dancing like Billy Squier in the horrible video that ruined his career, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
You nailed it.
So it's funny because Sammy Kerr doesn't let me down in this movie at all. The actor, I love the way he played it. It's dark, it's ominous, it's demonic. He looks great. He could have been the fifth member of Motley Crue. until we get on stage. But again, we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah. I also just want to point out that I thought that there was some really nice practical effects in this scene. You know, the bubbling Pepsi on the record, the fingers pushing against the speaker, and like those veins, the veins like that bubbling up on the side of the speaker. Like I thought there was some cool practical effects in this scene.
Yeah, the way this movie looked never bothered me for a second.
Yeah, I definitely agree that we should have gotten more Sammy Kerr. I mean, seeing him in that scene, he was like, all right, you are the rock god. I understand why they chose him as the actor. I understand why he's the character he is. Because, again, the platform shoes, the look, everything was really metal about him. Yeah. And, again, 16-year-old me was like, yeah, fucking stay true to the music, you fucking puss. It's like, you know, it's like it was a good scene for that. Even though he's supposed to be evil, you get why the appeal is there.
Yeah, and the character of Sammy Kerr, thank God. And what I just really love about this movie is they could have gone in a lot of different directions with his look at this time in 1986. I mean, you had bands like Dawkins, like, you know, look at George Lynch in the Dream Warrior video. Mm-hmm. You know, you've got, you know, bands that are going too far in the other direction. Like, for me, this was what I loved in 1986. This is like as close as you're going to get to like Nikki Sixx type idea. And it was really cool. There was nothing cheesy on him, no gayness. It was perfect. So I really liked it a lot.
You totally just showed our age because, like, you know, back in the day, we can say, "Oh, dude, that's fucking gay." Like, you can't say that nowadays. But it's like, you know what you mean. It's not like, yeah.
Well, I meant gay in the nicest possible way. And the other thing I wanted to say was, you know, the fact that they didn't choose a guy like Blackie Lawless to play it. Now, if it had been Blackie Lawless, or I heard the guy from Lizzie Borden was also considered, thank God they didn't use him. Yeah. I could see cutting the role down a bit because, you know, Blackie Lawless obviously isn't an actor. The live performance would have played a lot better. But you have a real actor here that can act. And I'm surprised they didn't lean on him more and make him a bigger part of this movie. Yeah.
You also have to wonder if they were kind of doing that thing that like that Jaws is famous for now, is that the less you see, the scarier it is, kind of a thing. Yeah. Because they show him in shadow a lot. You know, like they're kind of keeping, like they're not trying to shine a bright light right on that burned face because they don't want you picking apart the practical effects and all this stuff. So you almost have to wonder if they're doing that on purpose.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I really think, like you said too, we really missed an opportunity here to have an interaction between him and Nuke. I think that would have been like, I feel like it would have been cool if Nuke had been at the radio station in those final scenes to have a showdown and help Ragman with Sammy. I think that would have been a really neat scene. But
or even if it had just been a scene where Sammy shows up at the record station. I mean, he's traveling through electricity at this point. So, you know, he shows up at the record station and kills Nuke, you know, like that's cool too. But I would have liked to have seen a little interaction where they knew each other before.
Yeah, or even a little pre-death when he drops off the acetone record and, you know, discusses him playing it Halloween night, you know? Yeah. So,
well,
all right.
Let me ask you that. It's like, you know, we're talking about how Tony Fields was a good Sammy Kerr. Let me ask you, what if they just turned that and basically said, you know what, Gene, we don't want you to play the DJ. We want you to play Sammy Kerr.
Well, they did.
Did they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was the first choice for Sammy Kerr, and he turned it down. He thought that the role was weak, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he was actually excited to play what he called the Wolfman Jack role because he loved Wolfman Jack, and he was really excited.
He plays it very much like Wolfman Jack.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So Gene Simmons was the first choice for Sammy Kerr, and I'm really glad he didn't take it because it would not have worked for me at all.
Yeah, being Gene Simmons as the demon, it will always be Gene Simmons.
Yeah, I mean, unless they dressed him up like, you know, Gene Simmons and Kiss, and then I'm fine with it. You know, alternate universe, Kiss doesn't exist, and Gene Simmons is Sammy Kerr, the demon. Yes, I'm good with that. Let's go there. Man, this is just crazy.
Are we off the rails a little bit?
Yeah. Okay, on a crazy train. So Eddie calls Roger and asks him to retrieve the Sammy Kerr tape from Tim's car and destroy it. He'd do it himself, but he's been grounded. So metal being grounded on Halloween night. Roger gets the tape and goes home. Eddie calls him and asks if he's got and destroyed the tape. Eddie lies and says he did before putting it in and playing it. While Roger is making a peanut butter and chocolate syrup shake, we see a flash of light and smoke before Roger is confronted by Sammy Kerr, who pulls Large Marge, the head of the PTA, out of the TV, turning her into dust on Roger's living room floor. He tells Roger he has to play his tape at midnight at the dance or die. Roger agrees and then vacuums the PTA lady up with his mom's vacuum cleaner. And I literally heard the wind downstairs laughing out loud. I came down and said, the vacuum scene? She said, oh, yeah.
It just comes out of nowhere. It's perfectly timed. It's like they cut the phone call, vacuuming. It's like, oh my God.
Dude, he's vacuuming up the dust. There's dust flying everywhere. He's like bumping her head off the wall.
I just want to know, like, what the guy in the studio who was talking to her, it's like, where the fuck did she just go? She was just here.
Yeah. Did she die in real life?
Yeah.
I think that this scene proves that this movie would have also benefited from a little more comedy. Because that immediately, I was like, that was my favorite scene of the whole movie. That was hysterical.
It was my favorite scene, Joe. Hilarious.
Yeah, so I mean, and it's so stupid and pointless, but it was just like unexpected and funny and a little gruesome because it's a dead lady. So, you know, it could have a touch more comedy would have benefited this movie a lot. I also wanted to point out that I don't know if either of you noticed, but when he calls Roger, who I think actually is kind of the unsung hero of this movie. I think Roger's a little bit hilarious because I also love the scene of him getting the tape out of the car.
Yes, I was just going to talk about that. It's great.
He's like, he's trying to pick the lock, going, I'm going to die. And then he looks and the lock is unlocked. And he's like, ugh.
He's great. He's great in this. He is the Richard Dreyfuss in Jaws character.
Yeah, he was very funny. But I just wanted to point out that I don't know if either of you noticed this, but when he's talking to Roger on the phone after having the confrontation with Sammy for the first time, all of a sudden the black pants are gone, the black t-shirt's gone. He's in a light blue t-shirt and gray sweatpants because he's like, hold up.
Yeah, like listening to Sinatra. He's done. He's all metaled out.
He's like, hold the phone. I got to back up a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So back at home, Stan, Eddie's mom's boyfriend, comes to get her for a Halloween party dressed as Rambo. I love this.
Listen to our first episode. It's Rambo.
Yeah, that's right. Go back and listen to Rambo. And Eddie's mom tells him, you know, you're grounded, but I'll let you go out tomorrow and just stay home and pass out candy. And at this point, I think Eddie's more than happy to just stay home and pass out some candy and chill out. He's all done. Kind of a goofy scene. I thought it was funny. Did you guys have anything to say about it?
No.
I'm sure that this was another attempt at a comedy, and the comedy didn't go over so well on this at this point.
Definitely not.
But it didn't work for me.
At the Halloween party, Roger pops in the Sammy Kerr tape. Back at the home, Eddie gets a call from Leslie asking if he's going to come. He says no, he's sick, but he hears the Sammy Kerr tape playing in the background and jumps in his car to get the tape. But Sammy takes control of the car and tries to kill Eddie. But Eddie disables the radio before almost being driven off a bridge. He escapes and runs to the dance. This scene for me played a lot like Christine, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
got the glowing radio, you know, the car's trying to kill him. You know, it was all right. Yeah, this discussion is running out of steam just like this movie. Back at the dance, the school band takes the stage. The guitarist is messing around with his amp when suddenly Sammy Kerr's arm comes out of the amp, killing the guitarist, bringing Sammy to life to lead the band in the Halloween concert. We get a great scene of Sammy Kerr kicking ass. I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote that down. It's a fast way trick or treat with some bad lip syncing before Sammy starts killing students with electricity shooting from his guitar. The students panic and try to escape. Holy shit.
All right, guys, let him have it.
Jesus, come on, Tony. Let's hear your thoughts on this.
Okay. All right. My first huge issue. let me get my book out. So here's all this school who looks at Skippy like a fucking pariah because he loves metal. But these motherfuckers can't wait to get front row to Sammy Kerr. Fucking lot. Fuck you. Fuck all of you.
Yes.
And your fucking poser asses.
Yeah.
You love metal. You were so excited to see it and be part of it, but you fucking rag on him the whole time. Fuck all you poser fags. So
Totally.
Cut out the fag pack. So that's one. Two, the Sammy Kerr introduction could have been a lot more. I love reaching through and grabbing him. Thought that was great, killing the guitarist. But then he wants to start the claps.
Yeah.
So he starts banging the hip. And then, the drummer gets in with the kick drum. Then comes the awesome guitar chords, which sets up the whole band to go. Because everybody knows the song, apparently. They practice beforehand. Ready to go, right? Just like every musical, everyone knows the dance scenes, whatever. So he starts doing his lip syncing, and then he starts twirling. And then he starts flamboyant. One step and one kimono robe away from Buffalo Bill and Wild Horses. That's what this scene came off as me. It bothered me so much how much he just seriously watched the Billy Squier video from the 80s. It was a Rock Me Tonight that he basically destroyed his career with because of the way he danced. That ruined the entire scene. When he started hitting the chords and blowing people up, I was gone by that point because the special effects were so bad. It was just terrible. And I couldn't get by I'm like, this is the guy we're supposed to be afraid of. Like the guy prancing around. It did not work for me, and it bummed me out. Even last night watching it going, oh, okay, well, here we are.
Tony, this scene destroyed Sammy Kerr for me. Yep. Okay. I'm waiting to see Shout at the Devil 1985. And I got like, I don't even know what I got. It was like some Broadway show. It was awful. He can't lip sync. The guy couldn't lip sync at all. He's playing the guitar solo. It looked like if you gave a little kid a guitar and said, pretend like you know how to play guitar.
Yeah.
It could not have been any less metal. The performance was fucking horrible. What they should have done was just given him another rubber snake, covered him in blood, and just given me a couple of quick flash shots. That's all we needed.
It's you've just about covered it. It's tough. And it's like, I see that Tony Fields was in a chorus line, and this is the kind of dancing you see in a chorus line. That's it. This is what's in Beat It. This is what's in Thriller. Like, I get it. I get where he's getting the moveset from because that's how he was trained. It's like he wasn't a rock and roll dude. He wasn't. That's not who he is.
Tim from accounting gave him the dance moves, and it was all good.
Yeah, so it's like it's tough. It's like it's a hard watch because I'm like,
yeah. But let's just say the guy was a professional, like a crocheter on the side. Was he going to get up and crochet me a sweater on stage? I mean, these were moves we did not need to see. It was
a director. It was a director's fault. It's really
he's like, can you give me a couple of pirouettes? Get up on your toes, Sammy. Not good.
Yeah. But the thing is that all the other scenes are so good that I'm willing to kind of like forgive it a little bit.
See, but this was showcase scene. This was his moment.
Yes.
Sammy Kerr in full deadly, supposed to be like deadly fury, fearsome.
Yes.
It came off terribly.
It
took everything we've been leading up to was like, oh well, all right.
Yep. Yeah.
Flick the power switch and we're back to one. It's all right.
Yeah. I'm with you. It's like you gave me Sammy Kerr and I was buying it, and then we're gonna finally get to the Sammy Kerr concert, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy sucks.
Yeah.
It was like when I popped on that Diamond Rex album. It was not good. All right. So Leslie is in the bathroom. Is that where we are? Or did I skip?
I don't get who changes fully in a bathroom in school. Like, she wasn't in a stall, like just in the middle, like, I'm going to take my entire costume off and be in my brown panties. And like, no one does that. No. Even the special kid who pees at the urinal doesn't pull his pants down to his feet and pees. You don't go into a stall. Do it right.
Tony, we've done special kids. We've done gayness. We've covered it all. This is just, I love this podcast and I'm fine with all of it. Cancel me, I dare you. Okay. So Leslie's in the bathroom, completely nude. No, Leslie's in the bathroom. Tim confronts her and gets weird and rapey, which we get in lots of movies. I don't know why we need this scene. It's horrible.
Yeah.
But he tells her it's okay because they did it once before. So that means you can like just basically rape her anytime you want. That's how it works, right?
Yeah. Gross.
Okay. Well, no, I mean, that isn't that the rule?
No, it's not.
Okay. Well, that was satire.
In the 80s, it was. That was the. I know it's just another tangent on the millions of tangents we've got. Going back and like watching 16 Candles, watching any of those movies, it's like, holy shit, we thought this was funny.
Yeah.
Like, this is watching as a dad now, I'm like, dude, they just. The good-looking guy you're supposed to respect just passed his girlfriend off to somebody to go fuck. It's like, what are we talking about here?
Dude, totally.
16 Candles.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yes.
And then he says, "No, did we do it? Yeah, I think we did." It's like, wait, I think the question Farmer Ted should be asking is, did I rape you last night?
Yeah.
And then Revenge of the Nerds. Just because you're wearing a fucking Darth Vader mask doesn't mean you didn't just sexually assault her.
Yes, it's true.
And video it and show it to everybody and just
oh God. When you look back, it's so bad.
There's a million rape scenes in these feel-good teen movies. And I think we've just exposed it all. And you know what? I think that is redemption for all the slurs we use tonight. Okay, so we're on the side of good.
Edit.
Oh my God. All right.
Never be an ass back.
No, Tori, this is your best performance so far. You sound great. I mean, you had so much great shit to say in the last one. I was like, no, I can't hear enough of it. I think this one, maybe the bad Mike would have suited us. So after slapping her to the floor, hitting the woman and beating her down, she escapes. Eddie shows up to school to find Roger on the front steps, upset, knowing he made it possible for Eddie to do this by playing the tape. By letting Sammy do it by playing the tape. Eddie tells him to go cut the power to the gym and goes inside to find Leslie. He finds Tim in the bathroom and witnesses Sammy killing him with a shock from the wall outlet through his finger into Tim's mouth. Then Sammy confronts Eddie and Leslie, but Roger saves the day with a crowbar by smashing the main power breaker before Sammy can get them. Again, this is a great scene because I loved Roger through this whole movie. He's on the ground and, I'm sure he's dead. I'm like, oh, I remember Roger dying and, oh, Roger's dead. And then he gives us some funny lines there that I thought was pretty good.
Roger's the unsung hero for sure.
He definitely is. I know you guys are dying for me to get to the end of this movie. In front of the school, the students and the police finger Eddie, not figuratively. They finger Eddie as the one responsible. Eddie and Leslie outrun the police without running at all. Eddie explains to Leslie how he brought Sammy back from the dead, but realizes the radio station will play the tape at midnight. So they rush to the radio station in a police car after a brief encounter with Sammy where he kills a cop and attacks them in Eddie's bathroom before being temporarily disabled by a toilet. Oh, God.
This was the second laugh out loud moment for me.
Oh, God, please. All we needed was a cup of water in scene 2. And so he's basically the witch from The Wizard of Oz. Glass of water is going to do it.
The fact that they second flushed him to hold him there is really what made the whole scene work for me. The fact that he's literally shooting. All right, there's water all over the floor because he's splashing around. He's held in by the suction of the super toilet. Obviously,
God,
the water system in this town is strong because it literally holds his hand. They flush it a second time, holds him in there. He's still shooting fire after them, but he can't catch them. No, they're too fast for electricity because that's fast at all. And the
Sammy Kerr is a double flush turd by this point in the movie, right?
Oh,
like you got to flush twice to get Sammy down that drain in this movie.
Not to break up the seriousness of this scene, But the one thing, and Dylan will understand this because Dylan went through this as well. Back in the watching everybody, like, you know, Eddie's out there all, you know, with the girl outside the school, and they're like, it's him, he's the one who did this. Picking out the metal kid, all that went through my head instantly was West Memphis 3.
Absolutely.
I went, holy shit, like, why am I thinking of this? And that's exactly why. I'm like, and not to go off on 100th tangent of the night, but like the West Memphis 3, that's another perfect example of the bullying caused by metal. Oh, the weird kids obviously killed these kids. Anyone who knows anything about the West Memphis 3, we're not going to go into the whole history, but it's the same kind of thing. It's just like everyone at that school, Eddie wasn't even on fucking grounds. No one even saw Eddie there, but it's his fault. He's the weird kid.
Yeah.
Again, even though they all saw this demon thing prancing around a stage, blowing people up with his electric fake guitar.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
That was my fault.
No, it gives you that bad taste in your mouth, this whole satanic panic stuff. Like anytime anybody looked at different, you were at fault for everything.
Yeah. Dude, the triggers in this podcast.
I know.
Oh my God, I absolutely love it. I have the movie on right now, and it's the scene where Sammy Kerr is on stage. He's playing guitar with these like 12-inch fingernails too. It's like, come on, stop it.
Oh, he's just got the one long fingernail.
Does he? Oh, he's got the coke nail, the 80s I do cocaine nail.
But it's not even on his pinky. Isn't that the coke nail?
Yeah, he had it on his pointy finger.
He has his pointy finger has it for whatever reason.
Oh, then that's his I scratch my ass at night nail. Man who goes to sleep with an itchy ass wakes up with a smelly finger. Okay, so
wow. I hope you edit that out.
I'm not editing anything out of this podcast because I loved every moment of it. It was actually I was really nervous about this because I said to Dylan, I said, I honestly don't know if this movie has enough depth to even talk about for an hour. But we did okay. So here we are. We're on the last page, everybody. If you're still with us, I salute you. Eddie and Leslie arrive at the radio station, WZLP. Obviously, Sammy's been there because the night guard is dust. Eddie takes a small radio and throws it in the back seat of the police car and tells Leslie to count to 100 and then go inside and destroy the final remaining tape. He kisses Leslie and takes off in the police car. Eddie is insulting Sammy out loud, trying to get him to come, until Sammy leaves the radio station and appears in the back seat of the police car with the bars separating him and Eddie. Eddie drives the police car off the bridge into the river, presumably killing Sammy and, let's be honest, himself. Leslie destroys the tape. Eddie returns to the radio station and gives Leslie a very passionate kiss before taking to the station microphone, popping in a strangely familiar silver tape and saying, "Wake up, sleepyheads." We hear the song "Get You After Midnight" by Fastway, with Sammy talking backwards over the recording. Fade to black before getting another funny cutscene with Ozzy. So, Tony, Dylan, I'll go to Tony first. I and Dylan both kind of thought here that maybe Eddie was possessed by Sammy because he pops in the silver tape. It looked very much like the tape that had the songs in the key of death on it. The song just happens to be "Get You After Midnight," and it's obviously the recording of the song with the reverse speaking on it. And, he says, "Wake up, sleepyheads." So am I reading too far into this?
I honestly didn't. I mean, I picked up on the "Wake Up, Sleepyheads," but I didn't pick up the backwards talking as he was playing. I just heard the song.
Yeah, no, there was definitely backwards Sammy Kerr talking on it if you listen through it.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. I maybe just shut it off as soon as.
Yeah, no, you had to listen. You had to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, so I mean, it's and not only that, but it's like that was obviously he was taking over for Nuke, which means is now Nuke gone because he's taking over the radio station for him, which would have been a nice cutscene to go back and have Gene Simmons there. But again, the one thing I wanted to touch on, which is different than what we're talking about, is the fact that the one thing after all the insults he gave Sammy Kerr, to make him show up in the back of the police car. The one that got him there was he called him a poser,
Yes.
which is the worst thing you can call a metalhead back in the day.
Yep.
Today, it's like, oh, you poser. It's like, no, you don't understand how the weight that has for
It
someone
was
of my
huge.
generation. It's like,
Yeah.
you don't call someone a poser unless you want to throw down.
Yeah. Even though most of us were posers.
Speak for yourself.
I mean, in 1986, let's go a little further ahead. Yeah, 1987, 88, the most important thing to me was that my hair looked perfect on my way to Metal Night at Narcissus.
I might have had my Poison cassette while I was, wearing the Motley Crue shirt,
Dude, those were the good old days. I'm so glad I got to live through all that. And, and I saw it from so many different angles. I lived in California. I lived down in Greenwich Village and hung out at the scrap bar. Like, I lived right down on Christopher Street in the Village in 1989, 1990. I just come back from California. And, I had a shitty apartment in the Village and hung out at the scrap bar. And, these are times I wouldn't give back for anything. It was freaking amazing to be a kid.
And that's the key word. You lived through it. And so many people didn't.
Yeah.
I know that's a downer thing to say, but you think about, it's like, between the drugs, the alcohol, and the AIDS epidemic, it's like a lot of people didn't make it through the 80s.
Oh man, we're covering the whole gambit tonight, AIDS and everything.
I think I hit
true.
trifecta,
I love it. I'm so glad we're not going to stop till it's completely done. And Tony, I mean,
on the topic of pedophilia, yeah. I mean, I can't remember how many nights, like 2 a.m, we're out covering your stickers with our stickers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was part of it. Yeah, ripping other bands, flyers off the telephone pole or putting your flyer over their flyer.
Oh yeah. So it was a great time back then, and the movie tried to capture. I mean, I think that's why we still like it.
Yeah,
you can call we like it. We're tearing it apart, but it's like it's always going to hold a special place because we all grew up like that, wanting to be that, and then it just we grew up.
Yeah, if I hadn't watched this again for this, I think this was a much better movie. I remember this movie being amazing, and it's not. But now is the time we are going to give our rewatch scores, and I'm going to let Dylan go first, since she is not the resident metalhead. Dylan was like a first class, goth. She was queen of Man Ray, goth chick.
Stop it.
You
Stop.
were. Yeah, she was wrapped in patent leather, and she did it right. So let's hear your review.
I was not the queen, but I was happy to be there.
Okay. maybe a princess, a little,
Yeah, I'll take that. So I'm gonna try to be as partial as possible as I can on this. There's definitely some scenes that are cringy. There's some stuff that's a lot of fun here. If you were into 80s metal and you like horror movies, you'll like this. Am I going to watch it again? Probably not. So I'm going to give it a 2.5.
All right, 2.5. I will give my rewatch score. So this movie.
Oh, no.
We lost Tony. Email Tony and get his rewatch score if you can. So I am going to give this, when I came into it, I was thinking I wanted to give this 3 rewatches, a 3, but the concert scene was so deflating and the movie isn't good. And for those reasons, I also have to give this a 2.5 along with Dylan because that's what it deserves. And unfortunately, we're not going to get Tony's score, are we?
Hold on, I'm messaging him right now.
Okay. All right. Hold tight, people.
He's going to give it a solid 4 for nostalgia.
No.
That's what he said.
Okay. I think he's going to regret that. But anyway, with Dylan's 2.5, my 2.5. All right. No, you know what? I'm going to give it a 3. I'm giving it a 3. So with Dylan's 2.5, my 3, and Tony's 4, that brings this to a solid 3 rewatches. I think that's a little high, but if you're a metalhead in your early 50s, late 40s, and you haven't seen Trick or Treat, what are you waiting for? Go see it. It's a pretty good movie. Until next week, I want to thank everybody for stopping by and listening to the show. If you can, go to Lynn.
You want to rate and subscribe wherever you're listening. So if you're listening on Spotify, rate and subscribe on Spotify. If you're listening on the Anchor app, rate it on the Anchor app. These things do help us quite a bit to get a little bit more visibility. So we'd love to have you do that if you could do it.
And I hope nobody was offended by this podcast. We were just having fun. We honestly didn't mean anything by anything. So thanks for stopping by. And until next week, hey, did you ever see that movie? Bye, Dylan.
Bye.